Hi guys, it's Kelly Latevola here, and today I'm back with another video for Neat and Tangled. I'm going to be using what I just showed you, the fairy dust set, the magnolias, the stamps and the dies, and then also the stamps and the dies from You're Pretty, which I love this stamp set. So basically, here's my game plan, okay? And I know it's hideous. That's okay. When you're coming up with a game plan, it's okay if it's ugly. I always stamp in distress ink when I'm coming up with a game plan because they're so easy to clean off. And like, I know they don't stamp great, but that's okay. I don't need them to. I just need them to give me an idea. And so what I really wanted to do here was kind of come up with like this, it was like a enchanted forest, magical forest feel in my background without having to make a forest. That was pretty much my game plan. And so I really wanted like a deep teal color background highlighting the flowers in the middle. So I'm using distress inks because I want bolder colored. I love oxides. They blend beautifully, but they're pigment and dye inks. They're a combination. So they die. I hope well, were they alive? I don't think it's Frankenstein. Moving on. They go on, and they dry chalky. That is what I was trying to say. Dry, dye, words. Anyway, moving on. It's bad when you make yourself laugh. You know what I'm talking about. It's bad when you make yourself laugh. But anyway, so I wanted a deep teal background with like this kind of highlighted center. That's why you see me constantly like flipping the paper back and forth. And I chose distress inks because they are bolder. They're brighter. They don't have that chalk-like finish that oxides have, which is beautiful, but not the look I was going for. So here you can just see I'm building up the colors in each of the corners, and I'm leaving that white-ish area in the center. Now it's not all white, it's actually that light blue, but as we're adding more contrasting color, it's looking lighter and lighter. You've heard me talk about ink blending before if you've watched any of my videos, and basically I do mine twice, and I do it twice because I get a better blend that way. So each time I'm not completely covering up the color that came before it because I do want it to be more of a gradient, as if like there was this ray of sunlight that was shining through, but I am really putting the color down. Now each time I'm starting off of the paper, going in those small circular motions, and Chip Sapphire is going to be my darkest color in each of the corners. You could do this with any color combination you wanted. I think like a deep purple would be really pretty. Of course, a navy blue because blue is my boyfriend. But I just really kind of wanted this pretty teal, dark teal color. So as I'm going over each of the colors back through again, I'm going just slightly over them, like outside of them, so that they're building up that pigment. And obviously as we've gotten all the way out to Chip Sapphire, that middle section really does start to look very white. I don't want it to be quite that contrasting because I want to be able to do some white stamping later on, but you'll see as we get closer to the middle, we're gonna fill that in. So this is just an idea to give the illusion of something in the background. A lot of times I've heard other artists say this before, and it's very true, is your brain will kind of fill those things in. So if you have a background like this, where even though it's just ink blending, the little details that we're going to add to make it more of like a magical feel, your brain will kind of fill in that this should be a forest or a tree or something like that. Also, I love clean and simple cards, so typically I use white in my backgrounds, but it doesn't have to be white. Your quote-unquote white space in a clean and simple card does not have to be white. It can be any color. It just needs to be kind of open and unadulterated. Here, this is my little cheat when I'm too lazy to get up and get water from my bathroom, because I don't need very much. I'm using 2 pieces of just copy paper to act as masks because I want the sparkles or the kind of the moisture that's filtering in through the sunlight to just be really heavily concentrated in this area. Now I am going to move the mask out a little bit further for the next step, which is perfect pearls. Watch any of my videos, you know, perfect pearls. I just love them. They're my ride or die. They are my go-to. And they bind with water. So if you've never used them before, mixing them with water, once they dry, they're not going to rub off your project or anything like that. If you want to use them just as the powder, you would just either need to put it on a wet surface or mist it with water, and it'll hold them there. So here I've moved the copy paper out a little bit further so I could get a little bit more of that shimmer. And then I'm going to go in, this is a number 2 round brush. I'm going to go in and rinse off the brush, and I'm just going to pick up, I'm going to show you first, see? And it's very segregated here because of that masking. So I wanted it to be more natural, like the transition to be more natural. So I'm picking up very, very little water on the end of my number 2 round brush, and I am just tapping that very lightly on the edges. So it's going to make the spatters smaller and more controlled, which will make it a little bit more natural. Like as the light is getting darker, then the shimmers are getting less. So I should also say that I am working on Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock. That's what I did my distress inking on. That's what I'm going to do my stamping on. You can see here my paper looks a little bit dirty. It's just because I forgot to clean off all of the distress ink that I was stamping in prior. But since they're going to be colored in pink and stamped in black, I'm not stressing about it. Distress inks don't react with Copics because Copics are alcohol-based and distress inks are water-based, so it's fine if they make friends. In fact, I make them make friends all the time because I think that it's pretty. So anyway, we're going to talk about the coloring a little bit here. I knew I wanted, you guys know I cannot help myself with the pink and the yellow. The pink and the orange and the yellow. I just want to make them all pink, orange, and yellow. And I thought about doing another color with this teal, and I just knew I wouldn't love any color as much as I would love hot pink. And so rather than fight that and try to force myself to do something different because I you know, this is my go-to color combination, I just decided to embrace it. And sometimes that's okay. So what I'm doing with my lightest color is I'm going in and I'm doing some mapping. Mapping just means that I'm going to put some color down where my shadows are going to be the darkest, and then I'm going to start to work out from my lightest to my darkest color. I'm not really adding anything to the mapping that I've laid down in the beginning. I'm not going too much further out past where that line is, and I'm just continually putting down darker color. I'm also not really doing a whole lot of like flicking or blending at this point, and especially the ones that are curled up over themselves, there would be a lot more shadows there. So I'm just putting little lines of color to try to conserve some sort of highlight. My highlight is the area that I have left white so far. It won't end up being that big, but because I am heavy-handed, I know that I have to be very liberal with the amount of like white space that I leave. That's just something that's a coloring thing for me. If you have really good control over how much ink you're putting down, that might not be a thing for you, and that's totally okay. So shadows go anytime one object meets another, or anytime one object lays on top of another. So with flowers, I mean, you're almost kind of like outlining the petals, honestly, especially ones like this where it's drawn in so close and tight. And then once I get out to my darkest color, I'm going to move back through those colors back out to my lightest color, which in this case is the RV04. Oftentimes I will make my lightest color an RV02, but I just really was going for more bold color on this particular card, which typically I leave for fall, honestly. I like bright colors in summer, but this was just, I was really feeling that whole dark teal, hot pink vibe that was going on. So here I have left a little bit of white area, and instead of filling it all in, you totally can, by the way, you can fill it all in with the pink and just have it be a pink flower. There's nothing wrong with that. Instead, I'm going to go in and do a little bit of glazing with my Y02. And then I was having a little bit of difficulty blending some of that area, especially where it was still white. And so I decided to go in with the Y38 just to make that blend a little bit better. And I'm not putting this on every petal, I'm just putting it on some petals, but it's going to create that color variation, and every flower will be different. So that's just something that I just really love. Like, I love when they look unique and different and not all the same. So here I thought that maybe I could get away with those two colors filling in the center. Was not enough contrast for me. So I decided to just go ahead and do the full range, and go all the way out to the E99, which I really just barely put like a line at the base of it, and then called it a day. So I'm going to show you this other magnolia here, just so you can see from the side angle, and then I'm going to move on from I'm going to do the rest of the coloring off camera, just because it's pretty much the same thing. So here there's a little bit more flicking involved, because there's more surface area to cover. So I'm just using extremely light pressure, only the tip of my marker, and flicking towards the top of the flower, like the very tip top of the petal. And I'm being very careful that with my darkest color that I'm only adding just a little line or two. I don't want them to be super dark. So still, you'll see, still conserving that white space for my lightest color, because that's what's going to give my flower dimension, is the contrast between the darkest color, my shadow, and the lightest color, my highlight. So once those are, once the pink is done, again, I'm going to go back in with that yellow and then the orange. It's not technically an orange, it's a Y38, but I'm pretty sure is it named? No, it's named Honey, but it looks orange. And then that's all of the coloring of the flower. So I did the rest of it off camera. You can see they all look very similar. And then I opted for a yellow-green for my leaves. The reason I did is because I love like neon green with navy, or neon green with a dark teal. And so I knew pink and green are complementary colors. Adding in that dark teal, like that whole color family would work together really, really well. So for the leaves, I pretty much did a little bit of shading down the center of the line, because they're all drawn the same way, down the center of the line, and then I added some shading underneath each one of those lines. For the actual stems, it's going to be darker where the leaves are connected, it's going to be darker where the flower is connected, and then where one stem meets another stem, that will also be darker, and then of course I had to still cover the leaves. So again, that's pretty much going to be that, and then we'll move on to the next step. So tonight we had youth group, which was awesome. That's a story time for another time though, because that's a long story time, but funny. But I'm getting ready to go on vacation. So there's like, I don't know how you guys pack for vacation. I'm pretty much just like throw it in a suitcase and hope I have 3 matching outfits by the time I get where I'm going. But that's not how my mama taught me. My mama taught me to make a list and then go through and check off the list as each individual thing gets packed, which I really probably need to do since we're running a condo. So it'll be super nice. I'll have a kitchen, washing machine, all that stuff. But then there's all that stuff that you still have to, you're used to your house having, but this house won't have it. Side note. So I outlined all my images, and then I'm going in where you would, either the stems are drawn in or where you would see the stems on the flowers that are drawn on the half side, like from the side. And I just did a couple little white dots there. I'm going to heat emboss the second part of my sentiment. The reason I love this whole sentiment set is because it says you're pretty, and then it's got just a slew, an absolute cornucopia of really awesome things to go with it. Like, you're pretty, pretty kind, pretty brave, pretty strong, pretty awesome, pretty smart, pretty funny, pretty much the best. I just love them. I just think it's like, what a great way to, just a fun way to like encourage somebody. So I went with pretty kind because most of the people that I know or would send a card to are in fact pretty kind. So I'm just hit that with my embossing bag, stamped in Versamark, and then heat embossing in white. So yeah, my mom taught me, oh, see, no, wait, nope, gotta go back to the card again. Guys, it's getting crazy. It's going by so fast. Here, I told you I wanted to include that fairy dust. I'm not sure that I did this the best way that you could do this. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I wanted it to look magical. So what is more magical than fairy dust? Maybe unicorn dust. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what is more magical, unicorn or a fairy. They may be equally magical. I'm not positive. Anyway, so I'm stamping this in unicorn pigment ink because you'll be able to see the white. Like, you'll be able to see it on the background. But I also, so I'm going to stamp it again. I'm going to stamp it a second time. But I also wanted, again, it to kind of fade off into that gradient, plus it would give me more fairy dust. And who does not want more fairy dust? It's like more cowbell. Anyway, so you can see them there. And I decided that I was going to stamp, I was going to second generation stamp, but it meant moving the stamp. So this is tricky because the ink on here is still wet. It's pigment ink. So I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that moving this isn't risky. It is. You could possibly smear it, but because of the type of card that it is, I didn't think if I smeared one, anybody would notice. And then for the other side, it was just easier for me to flip the card around. So it has first generation, second generation, third generation stamping. And then you can see like how this looks like, you know, like how light would look shining through the trees. So now I die cut everything. I die cut, die cut, die cut, die cut. And now I've kind of got it all laid out, which matches that. Do you remember our ugly layout plan from the beginning, right? So that matches that. That's how I knew how many flowers to stamp, honestly. And I'm just going to put a very small piece of foam tape behind this You're Pretty so that I can get everything glued underneath it, but I know where it needs to go. And for that, I'm using, you know, my go-to Tombow Butter Multi-Glue. Anyway, so back to the packing. So my mama taught me to make a list for any of the packing that I need to do. And as I've gotten older and just my life has gotten more haphazard, I've gotten worse about doing this. But I need to do that because, like I said, condo, I'm not going to have garbage bags. I'm not going to have hand soap. I'm not going to have, you know, aluminum foil. Just these regular everyday things that you don't even think about buying because you always have them in your house. So rather than buy them at the condo, there's a lot of those things that I want to bring with me because I would rather bring 6 garbage bags than have to buy a brand new box of 25. Know what I'm saying? So that is going to be coming up as part of my week this week. Just getting all of that together. So any packing trips you have for like vacation rentals, please help a sister out. I would appreciate them. So once all my flowers are glued down, I put just an immense amount of foam tape on the back of this You're Pretty, and I'm going to go ahead and, well, I stuck it down and then I didn't like the way it was, and then I have to have the good fight of trying to pry it up. I don't understand foam tape. I do not understand how it can adhere so strongly and quickly when it's barely touching the paper and there's been no pressure applied. Like, how does it do that? You just set it there and then you forget about it. Like, you can't move it again. Well, you can, but it's risky. It's a risky venture. So here, the Pretty Kind, I've popped that up, and it does slightly overlap the Y, but I'm okay with it because I like a tight design. I'm going to flip this panel over, and I'm going to trim off where my flowers are hanging over so everything is flush to the side. Super simple, and I won't even notice that they're missing. It's just going to make the design look like it goes off of the page, which is the point of, you know, having things stamped off the side of the card, honestly. The last thing that one of the last things I'm going to do is I'm going to put some clear sequins on here just to kind of fill up that area around the sentiment, but also it kind of adds to that whole magic forest. Who was in the magic forest? Sleeping Beauty? Well, I think Snow White was also there too. So yeah, just like that whole vibe that we've got going on here. I'm going to put some glossy accents on top of those to make sure that they don't wiggle or go anywhere. And then, of course, you know, I'm going to put some glitter, glimmer, what have you, on the flowers because all the shimmery things. I mean, if you're in a magical forest, clearly the flowers would also be glittery. So I just wanted to show you here, the one on the left is my game plan, the one on the right is in fruition, and they do look different, but you can tell the design is exactly the same. So if you aren't somebody who has ever really tried to like pre-plan, maybe give it a go. Don't think it has to be pretty. Mine certainly isn't. So that's it. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.